This clip is from the, obviously, Democratic debate where there was a lively, shall we call it, exchange between Senator Sanders and Hillary Clinton regarding the term and who is a progressive. Now, in my opinion, a progressive is one who pushes for social change, and I believe that's pretty much the definition found in the dictionary. A conservative is a person who basically wants to maintain the status quo and is adverse to change. Now, I don't believe there's any such thing as a 100% true progressive, and I don't believe there's anything such as a 100% true conservative. The reason I don't believe there's any such thing as a 100% true conservative is because the conservatives that are in the Republican Party don't want to maintain things the way that they are. They want to make changes as well. Unfortunately, they want to roll things back on social issues, voting rights, etc., while they are also want to maintain the status quo as far as our opinion about the world, and they want to export their ideologies onto everyone else in the world, whereas a progressive understands that it's live and let live, and people are different, and you have to allow people to maintain their differences as long as it basically doesn't harm anyone else. So I'm going to play this clip from the Democratic debate, and it goes on for a pretty good amount of time, and then I'm going to come back at the end with my commentary.
Senator Sanders is campaigning against you now, at this point in the campaign, basically by arguing that you are not progressive enough to be the Democratic nominee. He has said that if you voted for the Iraq War, if you were in favor of the death penalty, if you wobbled on things like the Keystone Pipeline or TPP, if you said single-payer health care could never happen, then you're too far to the right of the Democratic Party to be the party's standard bearer. Given those policy positions, why should liberal Democrats support you and not Senator Sanders?
Well, because I am a progressive who gets things done, and the root of that word, progressive, is progress. But I've heard Senator Sanders' comments, and it's really caused me to wonder, who's left in the progressive wing of the Democratic Party? Under his definition, President Obama is not progressive because he took donations from Wall Street. Vice President Biden is not progressive because he supported Keystone. Senator Shaheen is not progressive because she supports the trade pact. Even the late...
And Hillary Clinton is right. President Obama is not a progressive. Senator Shaheen is not a progressive. Joe Biden is not a progressive. If anything, they are centrist leaning left, and the party basically pushes them on certain issues. Now, one thing about Obama, he campaigned about getting certain things done. He's gotten a few things done, but not everything that he could have gotten done. If he was truly a progressive, he would have pushed every single issue that he had in the first 2 years of his presidency to get them done when he had a supermajority in Congress, but he didn't do that. He sought to form coalitions and partnerships with the Republicans, which was the worst mistake he could have done, because their entire agenda was out to make sure that he accomplished nothing and that he would be a one-term president. So yes, Hillary, you're right. President Obama is not a progressive. Neither is Joe Biden or Senator Shaheen or the next gentleman that you're getting ready to make mention of.
Great Senator Paul Wellstone would not fit this definition because he voted for DOMA. You know, we have differences, and honestly, I think we should be talking about what we want to do for the country. But if we're going to get into labels, I don't think it was particularly progressive to vote against the Brady Bill 5 times. I don't think it was progressive to vote to progressive to vote against Ted Kennedy's immigration reform. So we can go back and forth like this, but the fact is, most people watching tonight want to know what we've done and what we will do. That's why I am laying out a specific agenda that will make progress, get more jobs with rising incomes, get us to universal health care coverage, get us to universal pre-K, paid family leave, and the other elements of what I think will build a strong economy that will ensure that Americans keep making progress. That's what I'm offering, and that's what I will do as president.
Senator Sanders, how do you establish a list of what it means to be progressive that is unrealistic?
No, not at all. Here's the reality of American economic life today. The reality is that we have one of the lowest voting turnouts of any major country on earth because so many people have given up on the political process. The reality is that there has been trillions of dollars of wealth going from the middle class in the last 30 years to the top 0.1%. The reality is that we have a corrupt campaign finance system which separates the American people's needs and desires from what Congress is doing. So to my mind, what we have got to do is wage a political revolution where millions of people who have given up on the political process stand up and fight back, demand a government that represents us and not just a handful of campaign contributors. Now, all of the ideas that I'm talking about, they are not radical ideas. Making public colleges and universities tuition free, that exists in countries all over the world, used to exist in the United States. Rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure and creating 13 million jobs by doing away with tax loopholes that large corporations now enjoy by putting their money into the Cayman Islands and other tax havens. That is not a radical idea. What we need to do is to stand up to the big money interests and the campaign contributors. When we do that, we can, in fact, transform America.
Thank you, Senator.
That Secretary Clinton said, Senator, President Obama has not called for abolishing the death penalty. President Obama is for the big Asian trade deal known as TPP. And just yesterday you said you can't be both a moderate or a progressive, but you can't be both. Is President Obama, in your judgment, based on these policy positions, a progressive?
Let me just pick up on this point. This whole discussion began because I commented, not making an overall evaluation about the secretary. She was in Ohio, I think in September or November. And she got up and said something like, I have been, I'm paraphrasing, I have been criticized because people think I'm a moderate. Well, I am a moderate. That's where this came from. It wasn't me paraphrasing her. It is what she said. And all that I said is nothing wrong with being a moderate. But you can't be a moderate. You can't be a progressive. In terms of President Obama, I think if we remember where this country was 7 years ago, 800,000 jobs being lost every month, $1.4 trillion deficit, the world's financial system on the verge of collapse. I think that President Obama, Vice President Biden, and the Democratic leadership in the House and the Senate have done a fantastic job. We are in much better shape today than we were 7 years ago, although my Republican colleagues seem to have forgotten where we were 7 years ago. That's the fact. But we still have a very long way to go. Do I think President Obama is a progressive? Yeah, I do. I disagree with him on a number of issues, including the trade agreement. But yes, I think he has done an excellent job.
Well, Chuck, if I could.
And this is where I disagree with him. President Obama is not a progressive. He is a moderate. He's a centrist. He is not out there pushing with every breath in his body on ideas that will basically help the majority of the middle class people. He is going along to get along. He's issuing executive orders in some cases to get some things done, but he is not doing everything he can in order to promote social welfare of the people of the United States. So I disagree with Senator Sanders as far as Obama being a progressive. He's not. He's a centrist. He's a moderate.
You know, in the very first debate, I was asked, am I a moderate or a progressive? And I said, I'm a progressive who likes to get things done. And cherry picking a quote here or there doesn't change my record of having fought for racial justice, having fought for kids' rights, having fought against the kind of inequities that fueled my interest in service in the first place, going back to my days in the Children's Defense Fund. It certainly didn't stop me from taking on the drug companies and the insurance companies before it was called Hillary Care. It was called, before it was called Obamacare, it was called Hillary Care because we took them on. And we weren't successful, but we kept fighting and we got the Children's Health Insurance Program. And every step along the way, I have stood up and fought and had the scars to prove it. So again, I think it's important that understand Senator Sanders is really trying to distinguish himself. I understand that. That's what you do in campaigns. But at the same time, let's not be, in I think, an unfair way, making an accusation or making an attack about where I stand and where I've always stood. And it is fair to say, Senator, that in your definition as you being the self-proclaimed gatekeeper for progressivism, I don't know anyone else who fits that definition. But I know a lot of really hard-fighting progressives in the Democratic Party who have stood up time and time again against special interests, against the powerful, on behalf of those who are left behind and left out. And that's what we ought to be celebrating. Let's talk about what we would do as president and commander-in-chief to make sure the progress continues into the future.
And she just cherry-picked because Senator Sanders was right. She did call herself a moderate in Ohio, and now she's flip-flopping and saying she's a progressive. Well, what are you calling yourself? You can't call yourself a moderate one day and a progressive the next. Make up your mind. And yeah, there are millions of progressives that are out there that are looking out for the welfare of the people of this country. So you can't try to clothe yourselves around taking up certain issues, especially after you've taken the polls on those issues to see which way the American people are going. If you're a progressive, you are a progressive. And whether the people are behind you or not, you push. No one ever has to question where Bernie Sanders is coming from when any type of a topic comes up. He tells you exactly what he thinks, and he's not waiting to take the temperature, whereas Hillary Clinton has waited, especially on the Keystone Pipeline. She waited months and months and months to take the temperature of which way that thing was going, and she did the same thing on the TPP, which she claimed she was helping to formulate, and that it was going to be the gold standard, but that she had to wait to see what the final product was. No. Trade agreements historically have screwed the U.S. Bernie Sanders knows this, progressives know this. Clinton is trying to figure out what the people think before she made her decision not to support the TPP. But anyway, let's continue.
That's right. I mean, instead of arguing about definitions, let's talk about what we should do. And one of the things we should do is not only talk the talk, but walk the walk. I am very proud to be the only candidate up here who does not have a super PAC, who is not raising huge sums of money from Wall Street or special interests. I am enormously proud. Never believed it would happen. That we have raised $3.5 million individual contributions, averaging $27 a piece. That is what the political revolution needs.
Senator Sanders, as a Vermonter, you have...
So I believe the point was made. Hillary Clinton really isn't a progressive. You know, she may push some progressive ideas after she finds that the people want those ideas implemented. things like background checks, etc., which Bernie Sanders was for. But when you're serving your individual constituents, and in his case, he was serving the constituents of Vermont. Vermont is a state where there's a lot of hunting and people, they enjoy their guns. Same thing down here in Texas. In order to try to get the people's guns away from them, you probably would start a civil war. But the majority of the people here in Texas also support universal background checks. That does not make you a bad person. It's just differences of opinion, and honest brokers can have differences of opinion. But as far as which one of these people is a progressive and which one isn't, if you had to bet, you would have no problem betting on Bernie Sanders being a progressive, but you might have a slightly hard time betting on Hillary Clinton being a progressive, particularly given all of the funds that she's raised from various industries, primarily the banking industry.